Let's talk about Unum long-term disability appeals. Now, you guys both know there's thousands of Unum long-term disability denials every year. We've all reviewed thousands of them ourselves. And a Unum disability appeal is required after the claim has been denied, when a claim is governed by ERISA, which we'll talk about in a minute what ERISA is. And it's the only remedy that's available, meaning a lot of people, get mad. My benefits have been denied. How many people call us and go, I want to sue them right now? And we're like, hold on a second. We'd love to sue them. We can't. We'll let you know why, and we'll talk about that again in a minute. But you might like this better alternative that you have because it's going to be a lot quicker than a lawsuit. And the goal is to get your benefits reinstated if you were being paid, or if you've never been paid, let's get you paid. But the one thing that happens almost all the time when people call from Unum is they called me and they told me my claim was denied. And they said, all I have to do is appeal. And they make it seem like, just send us a letter, just have your doctor write a note, and you'll be good. We'll review it again, and maybe you'll get approved. But Frank, it's so much more than that. And there's so much importance that goes into doing what I always talk about, the super strong appeal. Talk about why it's so important to put in the best possible appeal, even more important than what happens at a lawsuit if you were to lose this appeal.
A lot of people come to me and say, Frank, you've been doing this for almost 40 years. You can fix anything. Why can't I just do the appeal on my own? They said I could just, send them a one line, I appeal your wrongful decision. I said, that is the worst, the rottenest, the low rent, bottom drawer scumbag excuse that Unum uses to lull people into a false sense of security. Sorry, it frosts my cookies. I don't like that at all, because people think that they get more chances. You get one bite at this appeal apple. One, and one. So a one-liner, that's no new medical evidence. That's not showing objectively why you can't do your work and your occupation. It doesn't do anything to overturn what their on-site doctors suggested. You weren't disabled. You didn't treat enough. You didn't have enough medication. It was simple, safe, easy surgery. All the kinds of things that Unum's going to throw up, their top 10 reasons to deny a legitimate ERISA a claim. So, first of all, Unum's looking at your lawyer. Who's your lawyer? And can your lawyer afford to do a full appeal that's going to lay out the objective evidence, get the proper testing, go get an MRI, go get a CT scan, get neuropsych evaluation, do a functional capacity evaluation? They're looking at your lawyer. Can your lawyer afford to do those things? Put out the money to be able to objectively show you're disabled? You get one bite, Greg. Please, for people who are saying, oh, we'll come to you after we do the appeal. It's the ingredients that you used in the appeal. I can't rebake the cake. Those ingredients are what the carrier is going to take advantage of. And if you try and do it yourself, you're going to lose.
So, Stephen, let's get to you have to sit down and do a Unum appeal, but there's tools. And Frank talks about a cake. I always talk about painting a picture. Mm-hmm. There's this blank canvas, like this canvas painting behind you, but we want to get to that painting. But what do you start with, Stephen? Where does someone start? Where do we start with this appeal in order to put this whole thing together to present to Unum?
Yeah, so I think Frank hit on so many important points there, just going through from his experience and, what we see and do. Each one of those points could go on and on, in discussing. But first things first, when someone contacts us, a denial letter is obtaining the claim file. They do have a duty under the law to provide a full copy that's going to include anything you've submitted or they've created as part of the review. Whether it also be their medical reviews, vocational, video surveillance. You and I, in the case we had against them, copious amounts of printouts of our clients' blog and online social media presence. So you're able to see what their rationale is. Because the denial letters, some are longer than others, but for all intents and purposes, it's just skim it, right? They cherry pick what they believe fits their agenda in it. And then they leave it into you to go. And often they don't tell the insured, hey, you can get a copy of your claim file and see everything, right? Most people don't realize they're entitled to that. So you get that because with that, you get a look inside the room of, their medical review and their vocational review to see what they feel the problems are, where the insufficiency in the record is. So you can then start game planning. Now, all of us have done enough of these. Frank and Greg, you've done more than I have. But in a denial letter, right away, you start reading like, we need to do X, Y, and Z. If they're saying, oh, we believe you can work at a sedentary demand level, it's a chronic pain case, we're thinking functional capacity examinations, work simulation exams. If there's complaints of cognitive and, neuropsychological examinations, things of that. So the denial letter for us, we already can start building that road. But I think first and foremost for anyone, it's getting a copy of that claim file.
All right, Frank, I want to give you the meat and potatoes of the appeal. And it's all about building the evidence. Evidence in this world of ERISA, I love it. It's not evidence in a court of law where there's rules, what can come in, what can't come in. Everything comes in ERISA, and I mean everything. But like you said, there's one bite of the apple. What is the evidence, in your opinion, that are fundamental things that you obtain for clients in order to put together a rock-solid appeal?
I first want to know the occupation that we're dealing with at the time, the demands of the occupation, physical and mental, because just because you can lift 10 pounds doesn't mean that you've got sustained attention, you can focus and concentrate, and everybody needs those things to be able to do their work efficiently, do it consistently, and those are the kinds of, so I want to see what the occupational demands are for the job. Not a job description, it's a good place to start, but I want to see how the occupation is performed in the local economy. Is there a difference? Legal secretary, does she lift a 10-pound box in Los Angeles, or what about in Mississippi? Is she lifting a 25-pound box? The demands change depending on where the work is performed. So I want to see what the demands of the occupation are. Number two, I want the medical records, every single medical record. I want to scour through them. I want to pick the salt out of the pepper. I want to make sure that any subjective complaints that the insured voices about pain, about restriction, limitation, those things are solid, and we can show that those subjective complaints are real, objective complaints. What MRI, what EMG, what nerve conduction study, what CT scan, what can I do there? How can I prove the cognitive, the sustained attention, focus, and concentration? Maybe I need declarations from the wife who says, hey, I went out in the garage and the husband was standing there with a kitchen knife. Honey, what are you doing in the garage with a kitchen knife? I don't know. Well, those kinds of things bring an ERISA case alive. There's no trial on the merits in an ERISA case, Greg. There's no witnesses that are coming to trial. You lost your Seventh Amendment right to a trial by jury. There's no emotional distress or extra damages, and all they want to do is delay, delay, delay. They want to beat you up, they want to wear you down, they want to starve you out. So for us, we've got to use all the tools that we've got, put it together, so it's a symphony. It starts with the work, it kind of goes through the crescendos of all the different kind of medical, and then we bring the vocational in at the end to seal the deal with the attending physician statement. Look, I'm known for getting the chair of the department of the teaching hospital in the town where the insured lives. Why? Because the federal judge who's looking at this in an ERISA case is going to look at what doctor I brought to the table. I didn't bring Goofy or Daffy Duck. I brought Mickey, the head of the department. And sometimes a court will look at who you brought, what testing you had done, and remember, you get one bite. It better be terrific.
Well, I tell the claimants that before I even write your appeal letter, because it's going to be a letter that goes in, 85% of the work that our law firm is going to do for you is in obtaining that additional evidence. Because you could find someone who's just going to write, I disagree with this, I disagree with that. That doesn't do anything. It's all about the evidence. And it's a shame claimants could never do this. I shouldn't say never. They should never do it on their own because they don't know what evidence it takes. They don't know how much it takes to the point where you know that no reasonable person could possibly look at this evidence and say that you are not disabled. You have to get to that point where you take it out on the street, that 10 out of 10 people are going to look at this and go, there is no way that I could hire you for that job or any job with this evidence. But it's never going to be enough to just go back to your doctor and ask them one question to write a letter to say they disagree with Unum's doctor. It's never going to get reversed, and it's never going to change a federal judge's opinion if you lose your appeal. So that's what we do. We build the evidence, and then we put it together in a articulate manner that we know how to write. But it's all about building the evidence and then presenting in such a way that if you do lose, you still have options in a lawsuit, which is something that we'll talk about in our other videos and people can call us about, because that's a whole nother animal in terms of how you finish a lawsuit. But a lawsuit's a lot easier to win if you got a rock solid appeal.
Quick follow-up. For those medical professionals and those people who say, you know what, Greg, I'm going to do it myself. I say, you know what the insurance company is going to do at the end of reading your appeal? They're going to say, what a well thought out, thoughtful composition. Wow, you organized the medical, you talked about the vocational, you talked about the financial, it was put together, there weren't any errors, there wasn't spelling problems, you were cohesive, you were authoritative, you were unbelievable. Guess what? You just showed me you're not impaired. You're not disabled. And for my medical professionals who the doctor can write about a history and physical and all the rest, the carrier then turns that, uses it as a sword to say to the insured, no way you're disabled if you could do what you just presented.
Well, that's a great point that you brought up to show that they're showing how competent they are if they do something. But these claimants have options in terms of working with us. We're always going to provide them with a free consultation right away when they call us. We're never going to charge them any fees or costs unless we win this case. So we're vested in the claim with them to do everything and anything it takes. And you guys know we want to win the appeal, and we win the vast majority of our appeals, but it doesn't end there. Many of the people watching this video have been on claim for years. They got denied. This may be their second denial or a third denial. So we always continue to represent the claimant because this is a process that's going to continue. We can set the foundation strong by doing your appeal and getting you going, but this is going to continue because Unum, like you said, every month someone's got to start at the bottom and work their way up to that supervisor to prove or show the support that this claim is disabled. Every single month, someone has to push a button before that check goes out the window. So you can never let your guard down, and you got to build a strong foundation. If you have that, you'll stay on claim. If you don't, you're never going to get paid.
By the way, why do they always change claim examiners? They change claim examiners so that there's no familiarity. You might get along really well with your claim examiner, but 2 months later, they've brought a new face. Why? That new face is looking at fresh evidence and saying, I can get this thing closed, resolved, and denied in less than 90 days.
Unfortunately, you're correct, but it's a sad thing. So if you're out there and you need help with your Unum claim, feel free to call us, and we look forward to speaking with you to discuss your Unum claim disability denial options.